We finished the end of season 6 with tumult and collapse, in fact, collapse of a building. But that's, of course, just a metaphor for House. Well, or is it? I don't know if it is. It's not, I'm not qualified to say whether it's a metaphor or not. There's a big building collapse, and a patient is trapped. A young woman is trapped, and House does everything he can to save her. And he makes a mistake, or at least he is unable. His mighty intellect is finally found wanting, and he loses a patient. And this he's left bereft by this, partly, I suppose, because does form an emotional connection with the woman trapped under the rubble, but also because it's kind of all he has. His healing power is all he has. His intellect is all he has. And if that is called into question, if that fails him, then he's left, he really is alone. He's got nothing. And the one thing that sustained him, he can't even rely on that. And so at the end of that season, the end of season 6, he's in a very poor way, and that is when he's absolutely at his lowest. That is when the saintly Cuddy reaches out a hand, literally and emotionally, and tries to bear him up. And that's really where we begin season 7. Season 7 actually begins sort of only a matter of a few minutes after the end of season 6, which is not something we've done before. We usually allow some months have gone by. We assume that House has saved 40 other lives and won the county squash championship or whatever, and learned another few languages or whatever. But this time it's actually directly continuous. This has been a long time coming. These are two characters who have had feelings for each other, good and bad, for a very long time, and finally they collide, and I'm hoping that sparks ensue. The 7-year thing might have some sort of significance. There might actually be something to that. It is a number that has a bearing either on relationships starting to do that, or on relationships starting to do that. And we've reached that point where, you know, the pressure had to be released. It had to go somewhere, and either they were just going to explode in different directions, and House was going to go to Europe for 5 years, or they were going to come together, and they took the coming together option. I think they decided that, practically speaking, it would be too difficult to shoot on two different continents at the same time. What is the relationship? How is that affected by their frankly pretty robust, combative working relationship? How is that affected by their sudden newfound intimacy? Because in actual fact, the robustness of it, the fact that they're swinging punches at each other all the time, it sort of serves a function for both of them. I think it's something that they can both rely on, they can both trust. That if the other is pushing in this direction, it probably means I should be heading in that direction. You know, they sort of take their bearings from each other, and when you suddenly take that away, and it's all sweetness and light, and no, sweetheart, you go ahead and do whatever you want, then suddenly they've kind of lost track of where north is. You know, now they don't have their bearings. Outside of the immediate effect on the working relationship between House and Cuddy, there is, of course, then the effect that there's the sort of the ripples outwards throughout the team and various other people in the hospital. How is that going to affect everyone else? And it is a very interesting thing to follow. In Wilson's case, this is something he receives, as he receives most things. He's an anxious fellow, but he receives this with great anxiety because he knows that House doesn't really have his pilot's license in this particular area of life, is not to be trusted. There's a good chance that he's going to mess it up, and not just mess up the relationship, but will mess up himself, and possibly in a very destructive way. So he is, you know, anxiously looking out for how this relationship is going to go. He doesn't show any of the same sort of childish jealousy that House showed in the reciprocal version when Wilson started getting close to someone. Of course, House immediately starts to feel jealous about that and wants to sort of spoil it so he can have Wilson for himself. Wilson is a little bit more grown up than that, not much, but a little, and so his supervision in the relationship is generally well-meaning, but he's a meddler. He's anxious and he's a little bit meddlesome. But you know, he wishes well for them both. I think they both mean a lot to him. So he obviously wants them either together or individually. He wants them to do well out of it, to be in a good place. I try not to get to be too aware of how the audience, whether the audience are rooting for this relationship to work or fail, or whether people want them to be together or not together, because you can go a little bit mad trying to follow that particular hornet's nest. You know, one has to keep a sort of a certain amount of distance and just say, well, this feels right or it doesn't feel right. And if I were watching the show, I would, you know, I have a sense of what I think I would want to see and why I would want to see it. If one tries to anticipate what other people want, I think you very quickly go mad, as people actually have done. So I'm not, and in terms of people actually saying it to me in the outside world, well, as you well know, I don't go into the outside world. I live in a closet under the stairs, like a mushroom. More like a mushroom than you'd think, actually.